Okay, so I just want to say this. So today I had a conversation with a gentleman who was not black. It was a white gentleman. And basically we were talking about the relationship between the police and the black community. And he made the comment that, oh well, I can see why police officers shoot first and then ask questions later because they have no idea what to expect. And so I'm like, that's not right. And so we get into what's right and what's wrong. Okay, so boom. That conversation's over with. We're cool, we're just talking. And so I go into explaining to him why the police and the African American community, why there's a strain there. And I go into explaining the history behind it because a lot of people don't know, but the history behind that, it's been like that forever. This is not something new. Okay, that strain between the black community and the police have been there forever. I know you guys remember in the 60s and the civil rights, well, even before then. What y'all probably don't know is the police structure, the police system rolled out in America in the 1700s, okay, in the late 1700s. We were slaves. The Emancipation Proclamation did not end until 1865. So in the 1700s, we were slaves. All right. So what happened was when the police structure, police system rolled out in America, what they did was they took badges, police badges, and they gave them to slave catchers. Okay. Slave catchers, okay? If you don't know what a slave catcher is, it was people that would go out when slaves would run away to try to be free. These slave catchers would go out and catch the slaves. And one or two things would happen. Either the slave would be beat almost to death, or and then taken back to their owner, or they would be caught and then killed. I mean, it really depended on what the owner wanted because slaves were property. So if the slave master said, hey, when you catch him, kill him, then they would kill him. Okay, if they said bring him back, and a lot of times when they would bring him back, I mean, they would do things like cut off foots and limbs, cut tongues off. They would blind them. I mean, they would go through horrible things. So we can understand why slaves would run away, obviously, right? So those were slave catchers. Okay, so you got that whole generation did not like slave catchers. There's not one slave that, if you even meet one or ever met one, that will tell you that they actually like slave catchers. Okay, so as time went on, the police structure and system became more civilized. Okay, they became more civilized, more structured. But then again, the tension was still there because during slavery, the police was always aired on the white side. They never aired on the African American side. Even after the Emancipation Proclamation happened, the police still sided with the white people. So of course there was a tension there. Okay, not to mention that a great majority of those police officers did so many horrible things to people. I mean, they have, you can go on Google and see pictures of how they used to take water hose and hose people down and all this kind of stuff, right? So I'm explaining to him the history behind why the African American community why the African American community, why there's a strain there. Okay, it's not all African Americans have this strain, but people that know their history and have had a run-in with police officers, there is a strain there. And as a person, I can understand that. Okay, I understand both sides. Okay. So I'm explaining this to him, and what he did was, and this is what people will do, right? People, to justify slavery, sometimes they'll say, oh, well, Africans sold their own people into slavery. That's what they'll say. And I'm going to tell you something. This is why it's important that you know your history, because when they say that, it's just not true. Let me tell you what happened. When Africans sold other Africans into slavery, they did it unknowing that slavery in America would be what it was. See, Africans, they had a prison system like we do now. And what would happen was when an African would violate the law or do whatever, they would serve some type of term. So that term would mean that, okay, well, you're not in an actual prison building, but what we're going to have you do is go over and you're going to work for this person for free. And so Africans will have other Africans that committed a crime, they would go and work for other people for free. And then once they completed their term, they would go back to their families. Africans did not rape other Africans. Africans did not tear them apart from their family. Africans did not kill them. They didn't do any of those things. Okay, so when the European came to the Africans and said, "Hey, let me buy your slaves," they had no idea that the Europeans would take those slaves, bring them to America, and treat them the way that they treated them. They had no idea. So when somebody try to tell you, oh, well, Africans sold other Africans into slavery, it's a lie. Don't believe it. Don't tolerate it. And you need to read them their rights and let them know that it is a lie. They sold them into a slavery that they had no idea. They had no idea people would be raped, killed, families would be torn apart. They had no idea that the European would do such horrible things back then. They had no idea. And this makes me very mad, because you have a lot of people that really believe that, oh, well, Africans, they just didn't care about their own people, to justify slavery, to justify it. So basically they're saying, oh, well, it's okay because y'all did it. That's a lie. That was our prison. That's what they did as a form of imprisonment. Meaning when Africans violated the law, they would go to work for other people. They would work on these people's yards or do whatever that they did. And then they would go home to their families. They were not killed. They didn't have limbs cut off. They wasn't torn from their families. Women were not raped. Children were not raped. They didn't do that to their own people. They had no idea that the Europeans would do what they did to the slaves. They had no idea. None. Don't let people tell you that. This is why it's important that you know your history. I cannot stress this enough, because when you don't know, they try to pull that card sometime to justify it, and then you think, oh, well, it's okay. It's not okay. It's never okay. Slavery is never okay. I don't care who did it. It's never okay.